Hi everyone, thanks so much for being here. My name is Kat and I make houseplant videos here on Good and Planty. If you just so happen to absolutely love this video, please consider liking it, commenting, subscribing, following me on Instagram. All of these things help me grow my channel like a plant. Okay, so today we are going to be talking all about peperomias. This is going to be part of the genus series here on my channel where I do a deep dive on one genus at a time. Time codes are going to go here and down below in the description box, and let's just get into it. So peperomias are part of the Piperaceae family. There are over 1,000 species of peperomias, which is why there are a lot of plant hobbyists that are very into peperomias, similar to Hoyas, because there are just a lot to explore and learn about. That makes it kind of difficult for videos like this that want to talk about peperomias in a very general way. Take everything that I say with a grain of salt today. Typically, peperomias that we find in our homes are kind of succulent-like. They retain a lot of water, they have smaller root systems, and they grow pretty compact. And then another way that you can tell a peperomia is peperomia is by their flower. So here is a pretty typical peperomia flower. Because of how they grow, they're pretty good for desk spaces, offices, side tables, areas that, you know, you want compact decor. And luckily these plants are usually considered beginner plants. The care is pretty simple. There are just a couple things that you absolutely have to keep in mind, and then your peperomia should do well. So now let's jump into the care tips for peperomia. And again, this is going to vary a little bit depending on the species and cultivar variety that you have personally. Light. These plants are typically pretty flexible with light. Just keep in mind what your growth expectations are. If you're keeping a plant in low light, it's not going to grow as fast, and these plants are already slow growers. So if you want to see your peperomia thrive, then you are going to want to put it in brighter indirect light. Variegated varieties are definitely going to benefit from bright light if you want bright pops of color and strong variegation, whereas simple deep green peperomias will probably do better in lower light conditions. Water. Peperomias have not only small and shallow and fragile root systems, but they also typically have more succulent stems and leaves. That makes them perfect candidates for root rot. To avoid root rot, which is basically when a plant is overwatered and the roots start to rot and eventually the plant itself will rot, you are going to want to be very careful with the amount of water that you give your peperomia. Thin stemmed peperomias like this one are going to be more sensitive to over and under watering, whereas maybe one with slightly thicker stems are going to be a little bit more resilient. But basically you are only going to want to water your peperomia when the soil is almost completely dry and you see the leaves starting to soften and droop a little bit. Use your moisture meter or finger and visual cues for if your peperomia is thirsty or not. And then, as always, when winter comes around, make sure to pull way back on the watering. These plants are not going to need a ton of water to get through the winter time. Humidity. Peperomias are pretty simple in this area of care. Your average house temperature is going to be fine, and your average humidity is going to be fine. They can grow in terrariums, so I don't think they're particularly opposed to high humidity, but they absolutely do not need humidity to avoid crispy tips or anything like that. The only thing I would say is that these plants are still tropical, so do keep them away from hot and cold drafts. Fertilizer. I personally fertilize my peperomias pretty sparingly. I have burnt a few leaves in the past due to fertilizer, which told me that even my very conservative fertilizing is too much. This is like a little bit of what it looked like. The tips just started to burn a little bit, and I kind of knew that it was the fertilizer because it happened right after fertilizing it. From that experience, I recommend fertilizing with heavily diluted organic balanced fertilizer, and only do that about once or twice a month tops. Propagation. There are 2 to 3 different ways that I personally recommend propagating peperomias. The first and the quickest, most satisfying way is just to divide your plant up. If you take a closer look at your peperomia, you'll see that there's little sections, most likely if you have a bigger plant, and you can kind of just divide it up when you're repotting and separate them into 2 different plants. This actually used to be a larger plant, which I divided into 2 plants and I gave one away. Pretty rewarding, pretty fast, because you're basically just taking one plant and making it 2. Another way that you can propagate is to take a stem cutting. So you don't need a node here. You just put the stem cutting in water. You can let it callus for maybe an hour if you want, but I've never done that and I don't have any issues. You just take the stem cutting, put it in water, wait for growth, take it out, pot it up in airy soil. That's it. The last way, which I'm actually doing right now, is propagating in spag in a propagation box. So I have a stem cutting and I put it in some moist spag in a box and it's growing. You can propagate from a leaf cutting, but I don't think that's as effective. I've never tried it, so you can let me know in the comments because I've never tried it, so I'm not gonna hate on it for no reason. But I've had good success with stem cuttings, so that's what I'm gonna say. Okay, and then the last little care section is going to be soil. Airy soil with perlite or pumice mixed in is going to be perfect for your peperomia, and only repot them when it's absolutely completely necessary, because I've actually had issues with my peperomias right after repotting them. When you repot, make sure to only go up an inch max in pot size. The best container for them is going to be terracotta, and honestly probably even a shallow pot like I have this frost in. I have had issues with not placing the peperomia deep enough in the soil, and I'm actually having that issue with one of my plants. The crowns are kind of sticking up and it makes it hard to take care of them, and they like to fall out. Do not rush to repot these. I cannot stress that enough. Unless they are in a pot that they're not thriving in a mixture they're not thriving in, do not repot unless you absolutely have to. That is all of the info on peperomias that I have to give to you guys. Now I just want to have fun and show you my 5 peperomias. I think I have a cute little mix here, and I think they're all doing really well. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the peperomia show. First up, I'm just gonna get this guy out of the way. It's my Peperomia Frost. This plant is actually pulled back maybe 2 feet from a south-facing window. You can see a little bit of the bleaching out here. This I know is from the fertilizer, the brown edge. But the bleaching I think is from the south-facing window. But all in all, I think it brought out a really striking color in majority of the leaves. And this is my only peperomia that flowered this summer. I literally love the sparkle on the leaves so much. I love Peperomia Frost. I really do. This is a fantastic plant if you're looking to get into peperomias. Next, I originally got this plant thinking that it was a Peperomia Piccolo Banda, and then I realized that it was in fact a Peperomia Peppermill. I really like this plant because of the really cool contrast between the deep brownish color around the rims, and then there's like this nice bright neon green striped within. Again, you can see I have it in a very small pot. I didn't want to overwhelm it. I think that this is an underrated plant. Next up, we have the Peperomia Caperata, or the Burgundy Ripple. I really love the burgundy version of this, but the emerald one is also beautiful. Again, small pot, lots of foliage. It has a little bit of cranky leaves towards the bottom left over from shipping, but they just haven't fallen off yet. Fine with me. And I really like the size of some of these. I love like the texture. I just think this is a beautiful peperomia, and it's been fairly easy to take care of. I water it twice a week, and it's under the grow lights again. So another great peperomia. This peperomia is kind of exciting. This is like one of my, not gonna say it, one of my more expensive peperomias. It's kind of grumpy right now, mainly because I think that I'm having the potting problem where it's in soil and then I water it a couple times and then the soil gets packed down and then the different little crowns of it start falling out of the soil because the root system is so shallow. So that's currently what's going on here. What I do like is that really nice variegation in the middle. I just have to absolutely repot it into some terracotta with a nice bed of soil and just tuck it in there and make sure it's happy, because I did have a similar issue with this plant and repotting it in this pot helped a lot. And my last peperomia is a classic. It is the watermelon peperomia. When I got it, some of the leaves were kind of damaged, but it's been growing very quickly. I did put it in terracotta, so I have noticed that my peperomias do not do well in their original nursery pots. This was another example of that, so I repotted it in here, and now it's doing really well. And the one thing that I really love about this plant, you can see where it was propagated from and the leaf from the original mother plant. So I just think that is so cool, and that leaf is huge, and I'm just hoping that my peperomia gets that big one day. I love the little cute little babies, and I have a couple almost perfect leaves. It's crazy. Okay, so that's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a little bit about peperomias. If you have any additional care tips, please drop them down below. It would be really appreciated. I'm sure I will learn something and other viewers will also learn something. I will see you in my next video.